Near the mid-1800s, something in the Americas was stirring, something that would dramatically change the history of Ireland and its people. The Irish Potato Famine was a period of starvation and disease in Ireland between 1845 and 1852. Around 1 million people died and another million fled the country, which caused its population to decline by about 20%. Now, this was a horrific blight caused by a fungus-like microorganism, but it's important to know that Ireland did have enough food, and at the end of the day, most of the death and suffering can be attributed to human greed. So it's a good thing that rich people and companies no longer put profit above human lives, right? The economic and human aspect of what happened has been discussed and keeps being discussed. So in this video, I want to focus on the organism itself that caused the destruction of the potato. Phytophthora infestans. That's the name of the species that caused the blight. This particular species evolved in the Americas, likely Mexico, and it was first recorded in New York in the 1840s before making its way to Europe on ships via international trade. It belongs to a group of organisms called Oomycetes, also known as water molds, which are a group of fungus-like eukaryotic microorganisms. Some people refer to them as fungi, and that's because, as you can see, they look extremely similar. They have these filaments called hyphae, which together form a mycelium, all names also used to reference structures in fungi. They even used to be taxonomically classified together. However, thanks to molecular and genetic evidence, we know that Oomycetes are actually more related to algae than fungi. They belong to a group called Stramenopiles, which includes brown algae and diatoms. Unlike these guys, however, Oomycetes are heterotrophic, meaning they absorb nutrients from their environment. Most members of this group are pathogenic or parasitic and are notorious for devastating crops like the already mentioned potato, as well as grapes, tomatoes, cauliflowers, and cabbages. My cabbages! But these things are more than just plant destroyers. They will attack anything and everything. If something is alive, there's a good chance there's an Oomycetes out there that wants to unalive it. These guys will attack fish, plants, algae, insects, crayfish, even fungi, which literally grow by decomposing organic material. And there are even Oomycetes that attack other Oomycetes, but we'll get into that in a little bit. First, let's talk a little bit about how these things are so good at killing and surviving. Researchers say it comes down to a few things. First is their ability to reproduce asexually, and in the case of Phytophthora infestans, the one that caused the blight, it can somehow open a plant's stomata and use them to disperse their asexual reproductive cells. This gives them the capacity to proliferate rapidly. Oomycetes can also reproduce sexually or through interspecific hybridization, and this gives them a lot of genetic diversity. They also have the ability to occasionally jump to new hosts and the capacity to adapt and to overcome that host resistance. Put simply, they have genes that make proteins that will modify the resistance and responses of the organism they're infecting, which is pretty nuts actually. I'm not gonna get into more detail, but I'll leave the links to the studies down below in case you're into getting down and dirty with molecular biology. And let me just quote a research paper on the threat of Oomycetes. They are among the most problematic group of disease-causing organisms in both agriculture and aquaculture and represent a recurrent threat for global food security. That is from a 2016 research paper that I'll leave linked down below. And another one from 2022 talks about Phytophthora infestans specifically, saying, P. infestans, the causal agent of the potato and tomato late blight, now has an almost global reach and is arguably the most destructive of the Oomycetes plant diseases, both in terms of economic damage and the fundamental food loss. Yeah, this species didn't just disappear after the Irish Potato Famine. It's still around, causing crop loss and around $6 billion in economic loss annually. So, what can we do about it? What are we doing about it? Well, remember how I said there are Oomycetes out there that attack other Oomycetes? Sometimes you just gotta fight fire with fire. Pythium oligandrum is an Oomycetes that we use as biocontrol against plant pathogens because they can parasitize fungi and other Oomycetes, like Phytophthora infestans. And another thing the species can do is interact with plant root cells without disrupting the cell wall. This interaction induces a plant to produce various defensive molecules. Using organisms as biocontrol can be an effective part of something called integrated pest management, which seeks to use a variety of methods to attack pests and not just rely on pesticides, which are effective but have their negative side effects on the environment. So I think it's good to learn and understand these organisms, how they work. If nothing else, it can help us make better choices in the future and hopefully avoid another catastrophe like what the people of Ireland had to suffer. Thanks for watching.